process of what happened when technology goes awry, because we actually spent a day practicing technology for a half hour. And we thought we planned it all out, and whoops, and it worked out in the end. So again, thank you everyone, and hopefully everybody online can hear us now and actually see us, because trust me, this is a wonderful presentation by a wonderful group of students. So first and foremost, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Chanda Gilmore. I am an instructor here at the University of Delaware in the Strat Comm and Public Relations concentration. I also had the great privilege for the very first time to serve as, I had to say, an advisor. I know I'm listed as the instructor, but really these group of students, I did a call out in October. I needed really eager PR students who wanted to take the challenge. They're going to talk more about it, but for all of us in PR know about Bateman. I knew about Bateman when I was in PRSSA, and I said, no way, not doing it. These students, these 6 said, oh yeah, we're doing it. And they spent 5 months, where most students have like 8 months. They took 5 months to research, plan, implement, and evaluate a national campaign under my direction. That's no easy task, okay? So they're here today, team influencers, to share what they have created. And it is no small feat what they were able to do. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to them. I will say we will have time at the end for questions you may have in regards to what they did during their campaign. There's obviously, as we all know with campaigns, there's no going back in time to change it. It is what it is. But again, there will be time at the end for questions. With that being said, team influencers, I will turn it over to you.
Hi everybody, we are Team Influencers, like Professor Gilmore said, presenting our Bateman case study presentation. We had the client of every library. So just to start off, we're just going to introduce ourselves. My name is Madelyn.
I'm Ellie.
I'm Meghan.
I'm Ellie.
I'm Laila.
And I'm Dylan.
To give a brief overview of what Bateman is, the Bateman Case Study Competition is a national PR competition hosted by PRSSA. It allows college students to have the opportunity to create and run real campaigns for actual clients. We get to have hands-on experience and apply what we've learned in class to real-world PR work.
So for the 2025 Bateman competition, we had the opportunity to design a campaign for a client known as Every Library, which is a pro-library political action committee that supports libraries through legislation. So what that really means is through petitions, advocacy, and other efforts, every library helps to block legislation that does harm to libraries. So that would be legislation that defunds library programs and services, or legislation that works to challenge or ban books. And then on the flip side to that, they also help to support legislation that expands library programs and funding and services. Currently, every library's current audience is of women age 55 or older, and with this campaign, they were looking to diversify and engage their audience in a way that works for them to have more supporters. So with that in mind, we're going to turn it over to Madelyn, who's going to go through some of our research that helped us kickstart our campaign.
Thanks, Dylan. So moving into our secondary research, which we completed obviously at the beginning of this process, we found that library censorship nationally is rising, with 4,240 book challenges in 2023 and funding cuts in over half of the states. But luckily for us, Delaware supports libraries with about $40 million in funding and advocacy groups. University of Delaware being a huge part of the state of Delaware and a huge influence of the state of Delaware, University of Delaware's support is crucial to protecting federal library funding.
So now moving a little bit into our primary research. Before we do that, I'm going to talk about our audiences. So we originally started out with 2 audiences, one of them being University of Delaware undergraduate students, and the other being Newcastle County system library patrons. The reason we chose Newcastle County patrons was because they have a similar demographic to every library, making them able to amplify our message. We did a research tabling event at actually Newcastle County Library, and it wasn't as successful as we expected it to be. The librarians told us that we weren't really able to talk to them unless they came over to us. So we kind of just figured that we were going to drop this audience since we didn't know how to get participation without approaching people. So then moving on to our successful audience, University of Delaware undergraduate students. So not only are they geographically relevant to us, obviously we're on the Newark campus, but they are also clearly unfamiliar with our mission of informing and inspiring. So all these statistics come from a 107 survey size. So as you can see, over half think every library's mission is important, and over 90% of students have never heard of every library. And then up here, you can also see that over 90% use Instagram as their primary social media platform. So this is why we overall decided that Instagram would be the best way to reach everyone. We created an Instagram account to target our audience, making posts, stories, curating over 1.1K views.
So after collecting all of our research, we came up with our key research insights. That is, that UD students have the values that align with every library's mission, but they lack the knowledge about the existence of every library and its mission. And we also saw that the value of libraries comes not only for the resources they provide academically, but also for the sense of community that these spaces create. So now let's move into our planning stage of the campaign. So we created our key message, Open Hearts, Open Libraries. This message was the base of our campaign. It's what we put on all of our graphics on our Instagram, and it's really the message that we pushed out to our audiences. This message really touches on personal connection to libraries. Again, libraries serve as a vital space for UD students, not just for academic resources, but also for that connection personally with inclusion and growth.
I will now be going into the goals of our campaign. So we chose 2 goals for our campaign, and the first one is to inform and inspire new audiences about every library. The objective for this goal is by March 3rd to inform 750 UD students about every library's mission. The reason why we chose this objective is because it measures UD students' opinions and awareness about every library by us spreading awareness about it. We also wanted the students to become key stakeholders of every library. The strategy we used is by partnering with strategic partnerships to inform about every library's mission. By already established organizations already have reached students effectively, so by us teaming up with them, it can make us have more outreach. The tactics we use is UD staff, the Comptroller, and PRSSA, and we teamed up with all 3 of these tactics to further expand every library's mission. The second objective for this goal is by March 3rd to inspire 175 UD students to take initiative supporting every library's mission. The reason why we chose this objective is we wanted to look for students to take action beyond just our campaign and to continue supporting them. The strategy we use is to utilize on-campus events to provide information interpersonally. By having eye-catching events on campus, it will gain us more traction and make students motivated to join our mission. The tactic we used is Rally for Reading, which is a tabling event we did outside the Morris Library where we gave free merch, donuts, and by them giving their email, we signed them up for UD for the Every Library mailing list, and in return they got a raffle ticket and were able to win prizes.
To continue off of Haley's explanation of Goal 1, I will now be talking about Team Influencer's second goal, which was to demonstrate new channels and pathways for audience engagement. To achieve this goal, our objective was by March 3rd to generate 200 unique visitors to UD's Every Library's campaign webpage. This webpage consisted of graphics and interviews, which I'll talk about more later when we get to our tactics. But this objective strives to measure and track visitors who go to the website and interact with it. And if moved by Every Library's mission, they can sign up and continue to support Every Library after our campaign is over. Our strategy to back this up was to implement a social media campaign, specifically on Instagram, to drive traffic to that campaign website. We targeted Instagram specifically because Instagram is one of the most popular social medias out there, but also our research showed that 92% of our respondents use Instagram as their primary social media. We didn't use TikTok, even though we considered it in our research and planning stage, because during that process, it was in the middle of its ban, so we didn't know the long-term effects of the ban and how it would affect implementation, and we can still gain the same engagement by commenting and likes on Instagram as well. When it comes to our tactics, we use content interviews, which included library attendees just talking about their experiences that they have in libraries. It might have been things that they did when they were younger at the library, or just their day-to-day experiences at Morris Library. We also collaborated with the UD Communication Department Instagram to reach a larger audience. We also have graphics, which are shown on this slide. So we also had banned book bingo. So if you read the books, you would win. So for example, The Giver, Hunger Games, and Animal Farm, which are real banned books. We also have informative posts on why books were banned, such as The Giving Tree. And then last but not least, we had an AI video. Our campaign was centered around community and nostalgia, so we wanted to demonstrate what a world would look like without libraries. So that's what that AI video showcased to provoke those thoughts in our audience. And next we'll be talking about our social media campaign timeline.
So, like Laila said, this is our content calendar. We had a little bit less than a month to really implement our campaign on Instagram. So the blue dots represent an Instagram post, and the yellow dot represents our Rally for Reading event that we did on February 27th. As you can see, we tried to post every day or every other day to really keep our followers engaged and really focused on every library's mission. So with that, Laila's going to continue with our implementation.
Yeah, so let's see how we use our tactics and follow through with our actions. So at the top left, we have a screenshot from our Open Hearts and Open Libraries webpage. It's a screenshot, so you can't see. It was a slideshow that featured and flashed different pictures of Newcastle County libraries. Then we have pictures from our Rally for Reading that we talked about earlier. Visitors would come up and they were drawn by the posters because maybe it was books that they read before. And we also had mini books on the table. For example, we had like The Great Gatsby and Hunger Games. And they were like, oh, are these books banned? Are these banned books? And so it was strike up conversation. They wanted to learn more about every library's mission, and we actually gathered some emails so they can continue supporting. We also had free incentives from the communication department, which we very much appreciate. We had donuts, and it was a very successful event, and we're happy with the way it turned out. We have Dylan here advertising our campaign in PRSSA just to gain more support. We have our Open Hearts and Open Libraries graphic, which was shared with faculty so they could advertise to their class to gain more support and diversify our audience. So maybe instead of comm students, maybe biology students would be interested as well. And then last but not least, we also have our Instagram feed, which feature different graphics as well.
So moving on to evaluation, the many tactics we were able to execute during our implementation phase allowed us to accomplish all three of our objectives. So starting off with that first objective, we were able to exceed it, which that objective was to inform 750 students of every library's mission. And we exceeded that by informing over 1,300 students. So that number is coming from the 208 unique page views that we generated on our website, as well as one of our Instagram posts in which we collaborated with the University of Delaware Comm Department that got over 1.1K views. So that's where that number is coming from. And then we also exceeded Objective 2 of inspiring 175 UD students to take initiative in supporting every library's mission by inspiring over 350 students. So in terms of measuring inspiration to take action, we measured that in terms of any interaction or engagement that people had with the content that we put out or our campaign in general. So that number is coming from our total 207 Instagram likes, our total 67 Instagram followers, as well as the 41 people that joined our email list and the 37 people who attended our rally. And then going on to our final objective, we met Objective 3 of generating 200 unique visitors to our website with that 208 unique webpage views number. So in looking back at all these objectives, we determined some areas where we had some strengths and weaknesses that may have influenced our success in this campaign. So starting off with our strengths, we felt that we had a really strong social media campaign. A lot of the graphics and content that we put out was very audience-centered and driven towards getting engagement and interacting with the posts, like our banned book bingo that Laila had mentioned. So that's where we felt we sort of excelled, and that kind of goes to our next point of how our communication channels in reaching our audience complemented each other nicely, as we mentioned in the presentation earlier, our main goal in using that Instagram page was to drive traffic back to our website, where people could get informed on the content of every library, their mission, as well as take action in support of every library. So those two channels complemented each other well and was another strength in which we succeeded in our campaign. And then moving on to weaknesses, we sort of felt that we had a siloed audience. A lot of our efforts reached the same students over and over again. We really only reached the 1 to 2K students of the 19,000 that are on our campus. So we would have really liked to have diversified our channels more to get more audience engagement across the entirety of campus rather than just that one part that we had reached. And then in addition, we also felt that there was a lack of face-to-face interaction. Since we focused heavily on social media as our main campaign influence, we didn't have a lot of in-person events or face-to-face interaction with our audience. And after seeing the success of our Rally for Reading, we would have loved to have more in-person events and really get in front of our audience to have more of those candid conversations.
So following Dylan's reflection, there are also some adjustments that we would like to have made to our campaign. First would be to utilize more collaborations with other campus entities. For example, there's a club on campus called the Lovers of the Libraries, and this club would have really helped boost our campaign and just to be able to talk to people who are very passionate about libraries and their mission, who would be able to support every library's mission. They were very hard to contact, so that was the one reason why we couldn't reach them. And also host more in-person events. Our Rally for Reading was such a successful event that it would have been really nice to have more face-to-face to really explain every library's mission and why we're so heavily supporting it. And then also emphasize channels that reach a wider variety of UD students. Like Laila said earlier, Instagram is such a big social media platform that UD students use, but also I feel like TikTok could have reached an even wider audience of UD students, as that is the main social media platform they use. But of course, during the terms of the ban, it was very uncertain. We had a lot of uncertainty laying in using TikTok.
So in conclusion, working with every library taught us a lot of lessons. It taught us that libraries are more than just books. They're a place of community and stories waiting to be told. We're very glad that we got the opportunity to tell that story while learning public relations skills along the way. And overall, we are very proud of this campaign and all the hard work that we put into it.
And we'd also just love to give a special shout out to our professional advisors, Professor Gilmore and also Grace and Hetty. Thank you guys all for your support and help along the way.
In general, thank you for listening to our presentation. Now we will be moving on to the questions and answers portion. And if you're on Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or put your comments in the chat.
Great job. Great job.
I have a question. So first off, I feel like that applause wasn't loud enough since you did a great job. Can you talk about why you chose the nostalgia tactic or the nostalgia theme as your base that you were going to build the campaign on?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to a lot of our primary research. One of the main focuses in our survey was finding why people of our audience of Gen Z and students on campus really value libraries, because as there's been a shift towards digital technologies, you know, the libraries have shifted from being this place where you can get books and resources to more being something else, and we weren't aware of what that was. So in our research, we really found that students use libraries as a place to meet up with friends or to study more so than they do to check out books. And then so that sort of transformed into the idea that libraries are this community space, and that a lot of those experiences where they would go get books or go there as a child were that nostalgia piece there as well.
And also to add on to that, when we were still looking at Newcastle County as an audience, we found out that a lot of parents bring their children to the library. And since I'm from Delaware, I remember I used to go to Bear Library. So during research, that brought nostalgia back to me, which relates back to the campaign, and we wanted to share that with other audience members.
Well, I appreciate that as a parent who brings her child to the Newcastle County libraries. So I want him to have those memories of being a positive thing.
We have a question online from Hetty.
Hi everyone, great job, great presentation. My question to you is this. Now, having gone through the entire process, and experiencing it basically from soup to nuts, what lessons would you impart upon the class of 20, I guess it would still be 2025, next fall? Like, what would you tell them would be your advice as they're about to pursue their own Bateman competition?
I would definitely tell them to maybe a lot more time for research. I think we had a little bit of a limited amount of time. I feel like we could have done a lot more if we had more time to research. And I mean, we only had about a month to implement. But if we had more time to research, I think we could have planned that implementation period a little bit better and done some more in-depth research. That's one thing I would recommend.
I would also, I know we touched on this a little bit in our presentation, but I think partnering with other organizations on campus is super important. I know we had said that we wished we would have with Lovers of the Library, but just like getting your name out more by partnering with people.
Yeah, I also want to add on to that. It's like a sense of transparency. You're not always going to get the results that you necessarily want, but that's okay. Is something that we learned along the way, that I especially learned, was that if you don't get the results, that's okay. You just have to be transparent about it. We did do some great things, but there are also some things that we didn't necessarily meet, and that's okay.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, I think adaptability is a really big thing. Like, we had a bunch of different plans and iterations of what we wanted to do, and we had to go along and say, okay, that's not going to work. How can we pivot and take what idea we had there and implement it somewhere else? So that's always going to be a big thing, is always be thinking on your toes and how to adapt throughout the campaign.
Excellent. Thank you.
And we have a question from Grace.
First of all, I just want to commend you guys. You know, I just think you're fantastic because you entered into this grueling Bateman process. And of course, the University of Delaware's strange kind of timing doesn't really accommodate the Bateman competition, but you found a way. And I just want to, again, say congratulations to you. And is my prediction true that this was like the best thing you've done in your competition?
Yes.
Am I right, guys?
Yes.
You're all right.
It was awesome. We learned so many
Best
things.
experience.
Right? And now you're friends?
I
And
know.
Yes.
We hang out all the time.
I mean, when you're in the trenches with each other, I mean, you guys are lifetime, comms friends now. So I know it was a lot of work, and I'm just so proud of you guys for really taking this on. It's not easy, but what do we say? When you learn more from your struggles than your successes. So, and I love the presentation. I just want to say you guys are so professional. We see presentations all the time on our side, and you guys should give a master class in how to do a professional. You're poised, you're standing up, you have notes, you had a cadence, you clearly rehearsed. And that makes a big difference for the audience when you know that you've taken the time to organize yourself. You only had, I noticed you had 25 minutes because you were leaving 5 minutes for Q&A, but well done on that. But here's my question. So what can make or break a successful program and or really make the difference in the goals and the objectives you're trying to reach is the creative theme of a campaign, right? Open hearts, open minds. You guys came to that somehow out of the research that would be the most compelling message to incite action and or drive awareness with your target audience, University of Delaware students. Do you feel that open hearts, open minds, that creative plug that you used as the capstone of your messaging track, do you feel that was the right one? Did it really resonate with your audience? Because from the tactics I'm hearing you guys, threw some books on a table and is this a banned book? And then you had some other taglines going on, but how did open hearts, open minds really play into the success of the program? Did it connect with your audience? Did that creative idea really make a difference with your audience? The one that you pulled out of the research to saying that would be the idea that would unlock it all.
I think that the key message in general, it did resonate with our audience because it did focus on that idea of nostalgia. We wanted to come from the fact that nostalgia is very like reminiscent of a past and its form of like love and connection, and that's where that open hearts, open libraries came from, to make that emphasis on nostalgia and connection. I think where we might have had some shortcomings is consistency in that message. Like you said, we did have some other messages throughout. I think if we had done a better job of incorporating that message throughout the entire campaign and each effort that we did, I think we would have had more success in that message.
Yeah, I can actually go off of
What's
that.
the one message that did resonate the most with your engaged followers, or because we find that at an end of the communications program, we always go back and did exactly what you did. What did we do well? What could we have done better? And we always look at the messaging. Was it the right message at the right time? So it sounds like you had something else to say about that. I'd love to hear it.
I think another message that we could have gone in a different direction that did resonate with our audience a little bit more was the idea of banned books and freedom of that. A lot of what got people talking at our rally was like, oh wait, this book is banned. So maybe focusing more on that banned book direction and that restriction on freedom of choice and things like that would have been a better choice, which is a message that we had considered in the beginning and then decided to move away from. So that would have been something to consider more.
Yeah, that seemed like the one that you said was the showstopper, at least at the tables, and people pointed out on their own, right? So in your execution, you learned, oh wait, this is what's really making a difference with our audience. They connect with that, even though that's only the starting point of what every library wants you to tell people about them. I think in your wrap up, you talked about, we're proud of the fact that people understand that a library is a place of community. And I didn't really see that message coming out in your tactics. It was more like the banned book being the one reason I should get involved with every library. Yeah. But again, that's what we do at the end of these campaigns. We always look back and say, did that messaging, did that theme, that creative hook really make a difference? Because sometimes you get it right on the first time, and the next time you're like, oh wait, we discovered something new, that this could be a way to unlock even more engagement if you just suddenly tweak the messaging. Anyway, thank you for that. Great work again. Just so proud of you guys. Really.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Mike.
Hi, yes. I'll echo everything that Grace and Henny said. Really terrific job, and I will especially emphasize something Grace said. You could teach some professionals a thing or two about presenting. Well, really, really well done. And I want to follow this line of questioning a little bit from Grace, because I think that when we're looking for ways with our clients to break through in a really, really crowded world, sometimes it is the most I'm going to use some very strong words here. It's the alarming headlines, it's the alarming campaigns that help cut through. And so this banned book idea, which I know percolated a little bit when we were meeting at our offices, was that 6 weeks ago? Whatever it was. And there was an excitement about that. And then there was this pivot to open arts, open libraries, which feels very community, right? And maybe not as strong. I think that there's an emotional connection there for the community, right? And I think that it could go a long way. But for that kind of headline grabbing or attention stopping, we talk about it like thumb stopping content on your social media. So I wonder what, oftentimes we have to go to a client and say, here are our two ideas. This one is going to be bold and you need to be brave. This one's a little safer. The bolder one might get better and bigger results. The other one might cause less trouble for you. So was there a moment where the two roads diverged and you chose that road instead of going kind of like that? We're going all in on banned books and we're going to make this. We're going to stake our claim here.
So I remember when we were in the office, we were talking about like shutting down the library and doing all of this, and that did get us excited. Like we were all like, oh my gosh, yeah, totally doing that. That'd be so awesome. And I think you're kind of right with the way like you worded it about the safe route, and that sounds kind of bad, but I think at the end of the day, with the amount of time we had and the resources we had, because we did talk to Morris Library, which is the library on campus, about even like doing like shutting down something or putting a graphic up, and they were not into it at all. Like they were very against it. So we tried to.
That's good.
Yeah, we tried to do. Yes.
That happens to us all the time. So this was one of those pivots that you're talking about. It was a major one. It wasn't just a tactical pivot. This was a campaign pivot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so we definitely did try, and I think that you're right with that being a big headline, and that definitely would have probably grabbed people's attention more. But at the end of the day, we attempted to kind of do that, and then it didn't really work, so we had to make the decision to take, quote unquote, the safer route, and then do that, and also try to connect it back to nostalgia, and do that, and do the more emotional attachment.
I think that you did it expertly, and I think that especially with the amount of time that you had or didn't have, to be able to make that major a pivot is something that we have to do all the time, and sometimes with even less notice, right? Oh, this isn't going to work for whatever reason, and we're given a week to pivot. Now, we usually do have some things in the background, some plan Bs and Cs, and you guys did have that, and very professional for you to have that and be ready to do that. And even sometimes you should be really proud if the campaign doesn't elicit the response or the impact that it would have with the original idea, that you're still creating success. And Dylan, some of the results that you were talking about really brought to life that you exceeded your goals in those KPIs. That's an important measure. So I commend you for being able to pivot, but not just like, oh, this tactic didn't work or it rained and so we went inside. Those are all things that we deal with every day, but from a higher strategic level, how are we going to shift really the heart of this campaign from one thing to another and still be successful? So really well done.
And just to continue off of what Megan was saying, I think our messaging definitely had a lot to do with our way of delivery. I think we definitely harped on the fact about the community and nostalgia on social media, and then we focused on banned books by word of mouth in person. I remember we went to Perkins and Trabant, the student centers on campus, and we were like, can you please fill out the survey? And they're like, what is every library? And when we would describe it, I'm like, oh, they're fighting banned book legislation. So we didn't get to that nostalgia part by word of mouth, and I think we started combining the two the last week of the campaign, so it didn't really get to stick when we combined the two. I remember I made a graphic saying like, protect Junie B. Jones, right? That's very like out there, but it also talks about a childhood book. So that's a really great question.
I think that's sneaky in a good way. That's very clever because we do the same thing. Oh, okay, client, we're going to go the safe route, but we're going to try to get a message or something in there about that banned book. So it's all about community, but don't forget that this is another kind of cultural insight or conversation or trend that's happening in the news, and it makes it more worthy of like shared content or media coverage. So that's good, and you're going to find that you're going to need that, because that can sometimes bring the client along on the journey with you as they feel like they're being safe, but also you need to tell them we have to get you media, we have to get coverage, we have to bring awareness to this. So well done.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I will just quickly add, because I see that she had to jump off, but Gabby Indolini, who is the president for PRSSA Delaware, wanted to note that she very much appreciated your work. She agreed with everything Grace said, by the way, so shout out to Grace. She said that was very spot on, and she had similar thoughts to that, and she said, sorry she has to jump, but she was very impressed with your presentation. So I just wanted to relay that.
Thank you.
So where do you go from? Oh, sorry.
I don't have a question because my question actually was answered by some of the other discourse, but I'm really impressed with your presentation and great presentation style and skills today, as well as the work you did. So it gives me hope for our industry.
Thank you.
Thank you. So where does this go from here? Do you have are you in a larger competition?
So we did not place in
Okay.
terms of the Bateman competition, but we're still so proud of ourselves, and
Yes.
it's totally fine. But yeah, so
Excited.
basically this is kind of it. This was like the final stretch, and now we're done.
Well, I did not mean to end on a sour note.
No. It's fine. It's
I think
fine.
you all did a great job, and your constraints were pretty severe. I mean, based on the timing and all of those sorts of things. But you, it's come up many times. But I think if you take nothing away from it, that idea of being able to pivot is so important. And Dylan, you stated it very well earlier. It's just in everything, in professional life and in your personal life, all those things, being able to go from something negative and turn it into a positive or find a different path forward is a life lesson that I think will just keep on giving.
Oh yeah, agreed. And I think you guys were in the moment not realizing you were doing it. You know, I think you guys were handed a lot of no's by the university.
Yeah.
And I used to work for the university, and I know I was a no factory. And I was like, no.
Morris Library, and then we were handed, even for the green, you know, we were handed actually a lot of dollar signs.
And for
Yeah.
research
Yes.
too, like the
A lot of
institutional.
Oh yeah, the
board.
research and the IB. We were handed a lot of no's, even to the time, and then we had a time constraint. And I think, there's this time of reflection you guys went through, and now you see all the pivoting, which is really going through the campaign process and part of PR. You understand that now, and you're still alive. You're still breathing. You know, you live through it, and you can look back now, and this is the weird part about PR. It is fun. It is kind of like that roller coaster, you know. And it's scary and it's frustrating, but at the end, it's like, oh, that was fun. You know, it's like, let's do it again. But you're gonna do it again for another client, and that really is the whole process that you go through. It really, and that's the journey that you took. When Morris Library said no, and you had to find another way to do the rally, and you did the rally, and then what happened? Mother Nature was like, we're not going to give you an easy day. And that rally for reading, let me tell you, was the coldest, rainiest day. Because the day before was like 75 and sunny.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Look, our
and then-
umbrellas.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was just, that factored into a lot of things too, and they pivoted.
Yeah.
You know, and I was supposed to have a tent, and my tent decided to have holes in it, and I couldn't bring, it was just, and you guys just made it work, and so proud, so great. And Grace?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, all of the adversity and all of the challenges you guys faced in getting this off the ground, I hope it appreciates when you look at campaigns from the outside or the work in the industry you hope to join. It's not easy what we do. It always looks so great at the end when you see the campaign winning an award or, getting reviewed by Ad Age or PR Week. It's never easy, and there are always pivots, and that's where you find your best learnings. But what I want you to do though with the Bateman, where do you go from here? When you're asked questions in your interview process as you all go on to your careers, and you're going to get those questions, tell me about a time that you were challenged or you had to overcome something. You start with the Bateman competition. You say, well, what I did is, you know, I raised my hand and joined Bateman. It was an elective class, and I went through and built a campaign, and throughout the process, there were challenges and hiccups, and so the Bateman experience you went through in the last 9 months is now the answer to 9/10 of your interview questions. And I want you guys to put that proudly on your resume, because people outside of, you know, in the real world recognize that you entering this optional competition as a way to up-level your skills, learn things, learn what it's like in the real world. So use it. Yes, you don't have a trophy from PRSSA this year, but you have the experience and you have the stories. And when people are asking you, you know, why should you work at my company, you can pull out multiple stories from your Bateman experience to address those questions about why you should work at that company and why you are heads and shoulders above the competition, because you put yourself through this. So I want you to remember Bateman as your first answer to all those tricky interview questions, and why you will bring value to an ad agency, a corporate job, a nonprofit So remember that that's your gift. It might not be a trophy, but that's what it is. Great experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I want to thank Team Henfluencers for a great 2025 Bateman entry to PRSA Bateman. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Lasers now.
My one time I've ever worn it.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Grace
We
is
will.
breathing.
See you soon.